Well, that's great timing. So hi, everybody. This is a presentation about Restore Colorado. This is an extension of some work that Zero Foodprint has been doing in California for a while. So we started Restore Colorado a little over a year ago now, and I think it's making great progress. And so quick background, I began as a chef many years ago and was working in San Francisco doing all kinds of different restaurant things, and kind of gained some critical acclaim with a party Chinese restaurant called Mission Chinese Food that kind of miraculously won the Restaurant of the Year in the New York Times in 2012. And my chef partner and I found ourselves like off at the conferences drinking beers with the #1 chefs in the world and this kind of thing. And so fast forward a few years after my wife and I had a daughter, we started to want to work on food and climate and really solutions and food systems work. So we started Zero Foodprint, and it was originally focused on carbon neutrality. And then since then it has shifted to a regenerative agriculture focus through public-private collaborations, including the California Department of Food and Ag and Colorado Department of Ag. We just kind of formalized an MOU in February with a shared goal of achieving $5 million a year of funding from the private sector towards regenerative ag. So basically, the purpose of the organization is just to take action and give consumers a way to directly grow better food and restore the climate. And so it's really kind of trying to activate that impulse that consumers want solutions. Not everybody can, go to the farmer's market every week or pay 3 times as much for the farm-to-table restaurant. And so in a lot of ways, this is meant to create sort of like an economy-wide intervention that any business can participate in for just a penny. So I think we all kind of understand regenerative ag to some extent. And so I won't give you like the whole pitch of regenerative, but I'm going to refer to carbon a little bit. However, it's not a carbon market, and it's not a one-dimensional focus on carbon. It's really viewing carbon as the proxy for all the good things. The carbon is the soil biology that enables better water holding capacity, fire resistance, more nutrition, etc. And though this is a climate focus, nutrition is probably like as important, if not more important. And so this is a little chart about kind of the nutrient intensity of the vegetables grown in different farms and different soil. And so, if you had asked me as a chef like years ago, hey, how much healthier is the food from the good farm, the carrot from the good farm or something, I definitely wouldn't have known exactly. Maybe I would say twice as healthy, it's important. But some of the new research from the Bionutrient Food Association is showing that it can be like, radically much more dense in nutrients. And so this is, each bar here is like a carrot from a different farm versus another one, or the spinach from one farm versus another. And you can see like the antioxidants vary, 90x, 100x, the potassium varies 15x, the calcium 6x. And so basically food as medicine is almost like just beginning to take hold in the past 5 or 10 years maybe. And I would argue that the next frontier is definitely going to be soil as medicine. But this is a climate org. And so as we started adapting our program from a carbon neutral restaurant program to more of a entire food economy solution, in discussion with the state of California and a bunch of local stakeholders, we adopted a 1% model. And some of the logic behind that was from the macroeconomic guidance that Project Drawdown was providing. So this chart is the opportunities for each sector to be part of the solution. And so it's not really like the sources of emissions, it's the percent of the solution in terms of the opportunity. And Drawdown was finding, among other things, food and land is maybe the biggest solution, but definitely the least activated among the big ones. And then, there's many dollars of co-benefits for regenerative ag solutions and, all the different food system solutions. And then also Drawdown was finding that overall, that's a little bit far-fetched and abstract. Society could actually be on pace to lower temperatures with $29 trillion, which of course is a lot of money, but it's also just 1% of GDP each year. So for me, it's almost like the dual optimism of both regenerative ag being able to kind of like grow better food, turn back the clock, win-win-win, and coupled with a mechanism that is also like entirely plausible, because it's not like give up everything you like, stop doing anything. It's just pay 1 penny more. And so basically, regenerative ag is one of the big solutions for resilience and nutrition and water holding and all the things. But of course, to make change on 30 million acres in Colorado would just require like many billions of dollars. And so the question for all government trying to work on this is like, where does the money come from? You know, of course, we know there are solutions. There's no budget for the solutions. And so in a lot of ways, this is kind of creating an on-ramp to future policy, but also just creating immediate action. So some of the practices, you know, cover crop planting, compost application, etc. And I think, again, if this is a regenerative ag group, we don't need to go deep on this. When we began the program in California, some of the guidance was that in order to really make transformative change, we basically needed a new model. And, you know, so imagine, for example, after 50 years of the organic movement, you know, that has accomplished about 1% of farmland acres switching to organic. And so even though there's established premiums, even though, you know, everybody knows organic, there's not a financial mechanism that actually like changes the acres. It's kind of like a, you know, one big discretionary potential switch that could take generations. And so some of the logic of this program is almost going converse to that. And so it's creating essentially sort of a table to farm program instead of farm to table. And one of the policy frameworks that California kind of brought to our attention as we were forming the program and the model was CCA, which is a community choice aggregation program, which is kind of like the simple version of it being improving the grid. And so a lot of people kind of know this kind of program at this point. You know, you maybe send a couple bucks on your energy bill, maybe it's an opt-in program, you have like 30% renewable energy, and then a few years later they offer like the green energy program with 100% renewable, and it costs a little bit more, you know, but it's not like each individual is trying to navigate rebates and build a solar panel on their roof and negotiate with the landlord and all these things. You know, there's kind of like a streamlined community level program that just makes it really easy for people. And oftentimes, you know, the programs really accelerate once they become an opt-out program. You know, so you don't need a ballot measure. 5 city council people could just make a decision and form a CCA policy, and then a whole region would be on track. You know, it might take 5 years, 10 years, you know, but there's a path forward. You become 10% renewable, 20% renewable, et cetera. So the logic in a lot of ways with this program is, you know, instead of 1% of acres after 50 years, you know, what if we could get 10% a year, 5% a year through that kind of CCA program? And for reference, California began its first CCA in 2010 after about 10 years of policy work. The second one was in 2014 in Sonoma. And now there's 25 CCAs in California, and the state is 36% renewable energy. You know, so again, imagine if ag could become 36% regenerative in 12 years or something, that would be amazing. So this is hopefully laying the groundwork for some of that. So basically Zero Footprint is kind of operating at 2 levels. One is bringing money in and one is getting money out. So businesses are sending 1% of sales. The vast majority of retail accomplishes this by adding a simple 1% fee that the customer can opt out of. So again, literally, you know, nobody has to do this. So it's not a tax, but it's just giving customers a way to fund local climate solutions and feel good about their purchase. So whereas Zero Footprint used to work with like the cool Michelin-starred chefs and, hey, why don't you go above and beyond and go carbon neutral? Now the program is more like anybody, you can just start helping Colorado farmers apply compost, plant cover crops, etc. So I feel like the best example of that table to farm work is Subway Sandwiches is participating in Boulder. So this is 5 locations, and you know, obviously it's Subway. The guy can't go to the farmer's market and buy the heirloom tomatoes and all the stuff. Of course, they are able to just send a couple cents to help a Colorado farmer shift acres. On the farm side, you know, basically we're working with farmers and meeting them where they're at. And so again, it's not like, you know, helping regenerative farmers only and kind of a purity contest and judgment of what's the farm doing. It's really just saying, we'll help fund your next practice. So it could be a sustainable grass-fed rancher, you know, they're going to do their 5th practice and plant some hedgerows or apply some compost on the rangeland. It could also just be a conventional farmer for the first time deciding to reduce tillage and plant cover crops. Of course, we market for all the participants, you know, help them tell the story of this great impact work that the customer and the business are doing together. And you can see on the receipt from Subway, like if you imagine yourself buying a sandwich at Subway, it's just a complete non-issue at all, and so the whole economy could just start gradually shifting towards regenerative anytime. So of course, the complicated part is how to get the money out. So with a big solar project in a region, for example, $1 million comes in through this kind of program, there would be a public utilities commission, and they would basically like talk to different contractors and then build $1 million solar project. With farming, of course, it would be complicated. Who gets the money? There's $1 million. Does it go to the vineyard who wants to apply compost? Does it go to the rancher to do silvopasture? Does it go to the crop farmer to reduce tillage? 10,000 small businesses all barely making ends meet. So who gets the money? And so a lot of this is actually made possible through this amazing modeling program called Comet Planner that was developed by Colorado State University in collaboration with the USDA. And so it literally just does that. It provides some science-based guidance that allows a farmer, a business, an advocate, a policymaker to estimate how beneficial that next practice is. So you can choose from a list of 36 NRCS practices, put in a little bit of detail about the practice, in this case, the carbon-nitrogen ratio. This is a screenshot from a rangeland screen. You could choose an orchard or cover crop screen or different things. And then basically you just put in a little bit of detail like the county, the number of acres, et cetera. And then the model estimates, on average, this project would take 99.1 tons of carbon out of the atmosphere per year. So of course, one year it might be 90, and a different year it might be 120. And so this is not rigorous enough for carbon markets, but it is, again, kind of like science-based guidance that would allow a program like this to decide who gets the money. So this is kind of the more complicated part. I'm sorry to kind of drag you into the weeds, but I think it really helps clarify what's truly going on here. And so basically, we work with local experts like Mad Agriculture, the conservation districts in California. It's called the Resource Conservation Districts, also with cooperative extension like CSU and other local nonprofits that are working on this kind of technical assistance work. So the farmer applies for a grant through a program that Alana and our other colleague Leo oversee. And basically, the farmer is proposing a scope of work. So in the case of this top line on the database, the farmer is saying they want to apply compost and mulch and plant trees and shrubs on 18 acres. And in order to do that work, just to pay for the compost, to pay for the cost of the truck, to get it out to the farm, et cetera, they would like a grant for $14,000. This project is with the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Department. And in order for them to oversee and validate the project, take pictures, make sure that the practices are done at the standards that link to the model on the previous page, UCANR wants $2,000. So basically there's a cost for the practices and a cost for the technical assistance. And so we total that, so that's 16,000 here. And then basically the experts estimate that the project would remove or sequester 1,195 tons of carbon. And so we're basically dividing the cost and the benefit over here. So this project takes a ton of carbon out of the atmosphere for $13, and then the next one, $21, et cetera. And so, this project down here, that's $75 for each ton of carbon coming out of the atmosphere. That's not necessarily like a crummy project or anything like that. It probably has a lot of co-benefits that provides like prosperity for the farmer or biodiversity or water holding or different things. But we're kind of trying to optimize for climate. So we sort by this number over here, the dollars per ton of carbon removed. And then basically we're also giving bonuses for BIPOC farmers, underserved applicants, et cetera. So far, we've been able to stay above 30% of the funds to BIPOC applicants in California. And then also there's bonuses for equity. So if one of the producers is in the supply chain, one of the participating businesses, they also get a boost. But overall, we do all this work, and then we have kind of this queue of shovel-ready projects. And then in a given grant round, we're basically just distributing the funds starting from the top. So if we have, $200,000, maybe we're able to fund 9 or 10 projects. And then if, Chipotle and Boulder came on board, we could have funded like the next 4 projects or something. And so it really is just any business owner, anybody can start to become part of a systematic program to transform acres in a region. Since starting, We began with a few pilot projects with MadAg and then opened up an application round where we selected 6 additional projects. So these are the 11 projects to date. And, the second round of projects is just getting underway this year, or in the past month or so even. And so we're really looking forward to like storytelling and kind of making consumers and businesses aware of this program. And in a lot of ways, that's where, we would really love support and collaboration with 350 is, that activists and advocates could start to seek out the restaurants or know that they could directly, contribute to this fund or do anything they want. When we started, it was a restaurant program pretty much primarily. And at this point, through a lot of the collaborations, like with Boulder County and City of Denver and CDA and different things now, it's kind of just any business can participate. So we have, consumer packaged goods, online retail, wine, compost companies, etc., all just sending their, couple cents per purchase or 1% or whatever into this fund. And so, since this is kind of a group of advocates, I thought I would include a few like systems change questions just to kind of drive home some of the points and the reasons for this approach. So basically the program is a way to go faster than buying the good stuff and just directly use money to change acres. And in a lot of ways, farmers are barely making ends meet and facing federal subsidies, things that the Regenerative America program is hoping to reverse and stuff through advocacy work. And so I think what we're suggesting in the meantime is that you can also just take direct action. Meanwhile, there's a lot of good federal grant programs like EQIP and the Conservation Stewardship Program. But according to a recent report from the Environmental Working Group, those programs have had to deny 100,000 farmers in 2021. And so like farmers are ready to start taking care of the land. It's just that the prevailing incentives and food economy do not enable that. And so this is basically a way to start doing that. And then just the last item here, like according to the USDA, something like 14 cents from each dollar spent reaches the farm. So first of all, we should work on food systems and try to get that number up. Let's get it to be 50 cents per dollar, whatever. But even if we do that, of that 50 cents, 0 of it is earmarked for the next practice. And so in a lot of ways, what this is doing is kind of explicitly saying, let's just at least send 1 penny towards the next practice. Whatever else happens, we can keep doing that, but we don't have to reinvent everything. We can just at least start with that. And so I just put a couple next steps too. So basically, if anybody on the call wants to get involved, we'd love to work with you. The goal is to get individuals, businesses, institutions to just start implementing this. One of the big drivers also is compost. So in California's statewide Healthy Soils program, something like 72% of the funds have gone to compost projects. And so it's a really good driver for carbon sequestration and also just kind of resonates with a lot of people because it's so clearly just like closing the nutrient loop and getting that organic matter back onto farms and ranches. And so definitely we would love to work with you on lobbying for compost or policy work in any given city or county. And then we also just, people can directly donate on the website at restorecolorado.org and put money directly into that fund for the next farm project. And then of course, just individuals who want to support regenerative ag can buy from good farms and ranches, choose less conventional meat and dairy, and then compost themselves. So I will stop there because that's a lot of talking. And Alana, if there's anything you want to add, feel free. But either of us could also answer questions, or we could give you back the time for since we had some tech delays.
Thank you so much. That was amazing and so inspiring. I loved getting even more info on what you're all doing, and it's perfect timing because the part of our agenda is talking about this next legislative session, and I feel like there was not a lot in the last one about regenerative ag. There was like what was it? There was a pollinator bill and a turf bill, but there was not enough around regenerative ag. So we're in the discussions now at 350, and I'm going to add the municipal compost programs aspect that you talked about to our list because that's a great idea. And Alana, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think you did a pretty good job covering it, Anthony, but I'm happy to help with any questions if anyone has any.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
Not offhand. I feel like I need to let some of that settle in. That was a lot of good information. But I've definitely seen that on a receipt before, and now I understand what it is.
Oh, cool.
I don't remember where, but like I can remember. Yeah, that's interesting. That's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah, I also have, since you presented at the last meeting I was at, I've seen a few restaurants that have the little like thing at the bottom, which has been exciting to see. And I hadn't
Cool,
noticed.
that's awesome. And we just heard behind this.
Oh, Gwen, you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just wanted to ask if we want to approach restaurants or any other businesses with this, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. We're just kind of updating some of those materials, so we'll be sure to share it with all of you once we have that, and I'll share the deck too in case anybody wants it. But I think it would basically just be like a one-page kind of PDF that you could send along to a business owner or an ally or something, and just let them know that the program exists.
Great. Awesome. And then if there's other things that show up as things we feel like we could be advocating for locally, like composting or, that any of the practices, is that worth sort of being familiar with some of the different practices so that we would suggest them locally, or what are some of those ways that we can be advocates in the best way?
I don't have a lot of experience with kind of like proposing it to a farmer, so to speak. I think a lot of the times the farmers that we work with are seeking funds to go ahead and take that next step. And so I think that cultural shift could be a little prickly or whatever. So feel free, but we're not necessarily suggesting that you do that.
Yeah.
There's so many farms who want to make the switch and don't have funding that it's more about just getting funds to support the change. But
so just letting our local farms know that they could apply for this kind of money.
yeah, exactly. So actually, I'm sorry, that's what I should have said. So we're just building up the funds for the next round, and I think basically we're going to pick like 1 or 2 statewide pilot projects just to tell the story that this is now a statewide program. And then probably next spring or so, there will be a more robust statewide application.
Would it be worth showing this video that you just did for us with our local, we have an organization called Roaring Fork Farmers and Ranchers. That's a support group for a lot of our farmers. Would it be worth showing this to them, or would there be another strategy that you would suggest?
I mean, I think that depends on the farmers. I'm happy for you to share it with them and let them know that way. They can also, there's a statewide program called Saving Tomorrow's Agricultural Resources, or STAR for short, that Department of Ag is implementing like in this coming year. And they have a few $1 million from a stimulus rebate and from a USDA grant. And so there's not like secured ongoing funding for the program, but they'll have enough funds to engage about 150 farmers. And so that's part of our collaboration with Department of Ag, is that in a lot of ways this helps do more. Those 150 farmers could do another practice or more acres, or farmers not in that program could also have another path to funding. So it might be good kind of to give the Roaring Fork farmers a whole bundle of information. This grant program, which is small, the CDA program, which has a lot more funds and could serve 150 farmers.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, those are amazing questions, and I tried to take some notes and we'll add to them. And I think that's another big thing I've been thinking about in terms of the Regenerative Ag Committee and our legislative action at 350 is we see so many amazing projects and really trying to push funding, because it seems to be a big factor in a lot of what holds farmers back and a lot of these amazing carbon sequestration projects and stuff. So that's on my radar also, just how to get more funding out there for those people. So I'm so glad you're already doing it. Thank you for all you do. And I think we will, so I wanted to have time well, we have a full agenda, but we might not get to it all. But Jackie is also involved in a very exciting project with Kiss the Ground. It's the Regenerate America project. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to just share a little bit about that. There's some notes in it in our notes, but
Sure. Yeah. So I am not an official policy team member at Kiss the Ground. I'm the booking manager, so I work on the stewardship team. So I'll do my best to kind of briefly give a little synopsis. So Regenerate America is a coalition-led grassroots campaign to sway the 2023 Farm Bill to include 6 points of regenerative ag. And I'm going to pop the website just right in the chat. I know we're a little short on time, so I won't take too much time explaining, but essentially we're right now working to get a ton of farmers, a ton of activists, individuals, corporations, nonprofits, anyone really to get involved. And different ways that you could do that as an individual is through local policy, like what we're doing right here, having conversations and sharing education. And the website, it has a lot of information, but it's essentially Kiss the Ground's #1 focus for the next 2 years. So every part of our work is basically bleeding into this. And we launched at the end of May, and we've already seen a lot of energy moving towards it. We're really excited. So yeah, I just suggest checking out the website. And of course, let me know personally if you have any questions. You can get my email. And if you want to get involved, there is a link to sign up, and you can get in touch directly with Kiss the Ground's policy team. And there's all sorts of different ways for you to get involved. So yeah.
thank you, Jackie. Such a cool project, and I'm so excited to keep following and supporting it. Does anyone have any questions about that one? All right, no questions. I guess I had one question, just in the sense of, it's the 2023 Farm Bill was a big part of, this project. And you said 2 years. So is it kind of trying to influence this next year and then after 2023 as well?
May have misspoke. We've been leading up to this for this whole previous year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now leading into 2023. So this has been in action for a full year. And it's been a lot of work. So we're really excited that it's come to fruition, and that so far, I think we have a lot of farmers signed up, and it is very farmer focused, obviously. So it is really exciting. But yeah, so last year and then this year leading up to the Farm Bill.
Oh,
Thanks
good.
for asking that.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of work. I'm grateful that I'm learning about it now, halfway through.
Thanks for sharing this link, because I've been hearing a lot about Regenerate America, but I didn't know it had its own website. So I'm going to dig into it more. Thank you.
Yay. Yeah, we just divulged it like 2 weeks ago. So
Cool.
yeah.
That makes sense. All right. Well, we will keep following, and I'm going to stop the recording now, just because I think I'll keep it going. There might be people that missed the meeting that are curious about what we're talking about, but next up there, in the interest of time, I might not go too deep into this, but this is just the May Regenerative Ag Recovery Coalition meeting at the Lions Center notes. I just like to include those in here because it's a great, relevant, interesting meeting, and I think that there's sometimes some good crossover and info sharing that we can get from that, especially like getting Alana and Anthony here today. So another thing, and there's also some events, you can see October 1st, the Yellow Barn Farm Harvest of All First Nations Festival, and some tour information happening. So let's see. The other things that I wanted to talk about were, we are working with Jackie and the Drylands Agroecology Research, Amy, and I are hoping to plan a event up in like showing of Kiss the Ground and a tour of the Drylands Agroecology Research site here at Elk Run Farm and then the Yellow Barn Farm. And I just wanted to see if anyone in this group had any input on that. We're hoping to meet, we are meeting this week and then hoping to host it sometime in the next couple of months. So I wanted to just see if any of you have thoughts, input, if you'd like to get involved. I know not everyone is on the Front Range, but just wanted to make sure that it was on the radar of everyone in this meeting.
That's amazing. I wish I could come.
Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I've been talking with Nick because he's one of our grantees, of course, and watching the videos that they're making, and it's amazing what they're doing and really, really inspiring. So
Yes, yeah, it's a pretty cool project, and it's so fascinating how much has happened. And I mean, what feels like for us a short amount of time, I'm sure not so much for them, but just I got to visit and just see, the ability to farm with such little water is so inspiring right now.
Totally.
And maybe we can figure out a way to have some portion of it on live stream or Zoom or something so that those that are not close can join.
Yeah, would love that.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have a social media presence, and I have no idea if like an Instagram live. I know that's something that sometimes draws some people in. Again, I'm not sure what your resources are in that world, but that could be a cool element.
Yeah, that's we've definitely done some Facebook Lives and social and Instagram. I'm sure we're not as big on social or Instagram, but Facebook Lives and YouTube. So we could definitely do that type of thing just so that people could get an idea for it. They'd be, I guess, for the movie showing part, they'd be watching through the double screen situation, but that
can also, we can talk about it when we meet, but I can also share out a link, and we could do it both ways. Like we could have people tune in on their own, and but we can talk about it on Friday. Getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. That's good to know that we could give people access to that part. All right, and then so any other thoughts or questions about that? And then we'll have more information after we all meet and figure out the next steps and logistics and whatnot, but I just wanted to bring it into the loop of this group. But yeah, stay tuned. So the next thing on the agenda is legislative updates. I know we just hadn't met since a lot of this happened because our last meeting was right in the middle of it all. And so I just wanted to let everyone know that all of the bills that we were talking about did pass, and they will be signed by Polis if they have not already. So that was 199 pollinating insects protection study, and they were trying to make June pollinator month. So that was the inspiration for my what's your favorite pollinator question. And hoping he'll sign it sometime in June, as well as making June pollinator month. And then the 1151 turf replacement program also passed. So that will incentivize some water-wise landscapes. Hopefully, like we're talking about, get some funding into people's pockets and incentives to actually change to more drought tolerant landscapes and gardens and stuff. Like a lot of what Anthony was talking about earlier. And then we had the 1355 producer responsibility bill on here just because Jan and a couple of people that were really interested in it were also attending this meeting, and that one also passed and was signed. So that was very exciting to see. Any questions on those?
Yeah, are there summaries of those anywhere that we can get some speaking points or some bullets about?
Yeah, definitely. I am copying so I don't know if you're in the notes doc, but that's just a quick summary into the legislative doc, and then I will send you after this meeting, and anyone else that wants it, but we did a legislative review meeting, and that kind of goes over a little summary of each bill and what process they went through. It was so, this is the first time I was in this position at 350, and just so shocking how much they all go through to get to the point where they get passed. So I kind of laid out a little bit of the ups and downs they went through, and all the different layers of to the House and then the Senate, and just a little more details, but I can send you that if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Okay. And also in the notes there, you'll see, if you just want to see the state's summary, you can click on each bill and go to the state's page.
Perfect.
But on that note, I just wanted to talk about, it was such perfect timing to get that presentation and two presentations that are kind of crossing over with policy work, because I wanted to get a gauge on this group's thoughts on legislative action that is relevant and helpful for regenerative ag. I think that was something that felt like it was lacking a lot in last year's session. And now that the session is over for 2022, 350 is really trying to get on top of the initial phase of creating legislation and, cultivating relationships with legislators and trying to figure out how to be part of the bill writing process a little more, instead of the just once all the bills are introduced, supporting and testifying and all that. So anyways, I already wrote down the municipal compost programs and funding for farmers and regenerative ag. And then, local movements that could support things similar to what you all are doing with Regenerate America seem like a relevant thing to maybe talk about. But I just wanted to see if anyone in this group has thoughts on that, what to focus on this year legislatively.
Yeah, I mean, knowing how influential the municipal composting can be, I would say, I'd be happy to throw a lot of energy that way.
Yeah, that's a great,
because there's a lot of public education that can happen along with it, which is also, can reach into lots of different areas from one thing that everybody can kind of get behind.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and it seems like something that, like it's kind of like the recycling bills this year that passed. They had to compromise a little bit, but it's something that we have figured out. So why don't we have it in a mainstream way that's streamlined across the state?
Yeah.
So.
I'd just jump in and say, I'm really new to the policy world. So, I'm on board and excited to use my energy towards policy and help in any way that I can, but I don't know if offhand I have anything to throw out. But I'm definitely on board.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's super helpful. And I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that just made me think, are there allies that 350 Colorado has with state legislators who could be of guidance in this area, who are already kind of looking at policy and seeing what might be in the hopper and could say, hey, we really think you guys should throw effort behind such and such.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And that is what 350 is definitely working on right now, of just trying to figure out which legislators we can, talk to. We have a lot of meetings set up with various people, or if anyone in this group has meetings, or has a connection with your representative or legislator, I've been so shocked at how much they are willing to listen and talk. If you're like, hey, I'm your constituent, can we meet? I have some ideas. That's a great way to start. And I'm hoping that we can do more and more of it as an Oregon group. But anyone else have any thoughts on what Gwen said? Because I think that's a really important point.
It just made me think, I'm curious when you guys, if you've done farm tours in the past, if anyone has reached out to like local legislators and invited them to a regenerative farm for a farm tour. Because one thing that Kiss the Ground does on a federal level and state level, but we work towards federal level, is we host farm tours in regenerative landscapes, and we educate the folks that are actually making some of these decisions. And oftentimes the feedback is that people aren't, you know, in those roles are like, wow, I learned so much about how important our soil health is, and I didn't even know. So that's one idea, but I don't know if you already do that.
Yeah, no, that's actually a fantastic idea. I think especially with like even council people and local reps, and you know, it doesn't ever hurt to invite them. And I think that you're so right that a lot of them just don't get invited to that kind of thing because people like think they're, you know, not going to come. And so I think it's a really good reminder that we should start inviting them to more stuff. And maybe this tour that we're planning would be a good place to start.
Yeah, and even if they have a staffer that can come, sometimes those relationships are super helpful. And those are the kind of people that I'm thinking, you know, some of the senators may have staff that have some chops in this area.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have connected with the Polis's climate person, and so he's been a lot more, you know, responsive. And then I think a lot of times, like during the legislative session, people would reach out to have meetings with their senator or rep, and it ended up being with the staffer, but it felt just as productive and helpful. And you know, they could.
Yeah, they're the people that are driving it for sure.
Yes. Well, I want to respect y'all's time. I see it's 7:31. I apologize again for the technical difficulties, but I'm glad we got so much of this in. And I will send out the recording to the Regen Ag list. Let me know if you're not on that and you would like to be on it, and I'll add you. Until next time. Oh, and there's some good notes in the chat for anyone that from Anthony that I did add into our notes if you missed that. So
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody.
thank you.